everyone. Great to be back with another episode of AWS Connections Supply Chain. We're in episode 2, transportation. And my name is Michael Palermo. I'm with the developer relations team, developer evangelist. And with me today is Vidhan. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Vidhan.
Hey everyone, I'm Vidhan and I am Developer Evangelist at Here Technologies and I am based out of India.
So Vidhan, right before we get into the nitty gritty of things, I do want to ask you a question. It's actually, I would like to ask this of all the listeners too. So put your answers in the chat. Since the beginning of this year, especially because many of us have been more restricted to a certain location, I'm curious, Vidhan, what is the number one food item that you have been eating or repeating to eat? And maybe there's a few, but what have been the like your top go-to food item, whether you like it or not? I'm just saying what you've been eating the most of this year. What would you say?
To be honest, I have been eating a lot. Lockdown has been something like where we are eating a lot. So if I have to name two, one will be milk. I'm drinking a lot of milk. Don't know why, in all form, coffee, tea, and plain milk. Apart from that, one very strange thing, which I don't know why I'm eating a lot, is yogurt, different flavored. And I have ordered them a lot and I have eaten them a lot.
You got dairy covered. That is for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So anybody else in the chat responding to their top food items of this year?
Sina is saying she had peaches. A lot of them, it seems. Since
Cool.
it's summer there, right?
Yeah. I know Peter's running the show today. Maybe he can do some like brainwaves to me and tell me what his big thing is. What? Okay, I guess he's going to answer in chat. So we'll find out what that is.
So, Michael, what have you
Yeah.
been eating in lockdown? So, what's your food?
You know what? I have been one of these persons that has been taking advantage a lot of food delivery. And I have been obsessed for months now with ordering quesadillas. You know,
Oh, nice.
and chicken quesadillas. Same
Okay.
kind, again and again. I could live on those things. In fact, I have been. So yeah, it's
And Peter, we have, and he's been eating a lot of burgers. He's just been grilling them a lot. That sounds
grilling. No,
actually, yeah.
actually, that does sound pretty good. I like it. Cool.
So I
I had that
did
on.
order.
Oh,
I
go ahead. Are you there, Vidhan? Okay. Well, we are sorting out what has happened to Vidhan, and in the meantime, at least I'm going to start with an overview of what we're going to do in this episode. In the event that we lose him, then maybe you could put a picture of my puppy up there. I don't know. Okay. So in this episode, we are going to be dealing with the overall scenario that was referenced in episode 1. So in episode 1 of this series, we talked about the overall architecture, and the scenario that we're going to be building on is the scenario of let's go ahead and build something that really showcases in the supply chain the last mile, which is how we're getting a product to its final destination. And all the different players that are involved in that scenario would include one, and very importantly, the consumer. I mean, the consumer is the one that ultimately is requesting the product and will be the final destination of where the product is delivered. And then we also have the retailer. Now, this is the one that's going to enable the transaction. Now, whether this was a brick and mortar transaction or an online transaction, it's the one that facilitates the transaction and basically processes the however that consumer is going to receive that product. Then we have our distribution center. Now, this could technically also be the retailer. Like in a brick and mortar, what we mean by distribution center here, because that can be an overloaded term, it just means where is the product currently sitting now? It could be on a shelf in a retail store, or it could be at a distribution center just waiting to be picked up and delivered. Whatever the case is, that it's the second to the last destination, so to speak, before it gets to the consumer. And now in this scenario, we also have this fictitious ultimate delivery company that is basically saying, hey, you need something delivered within your locality, wherever it is, we'll facilitate it for you. So, and as a result of that, there's transportation, right? Getting something from A to B. So that is going to be the focus of today, is the transportation piece of this scenario. And then we'll be diving into some of those other players as we have subsequent episodes. But for now, I just realized, so as I'm talking, of course, I'm focused on my audience, right? But I just did a quick glance over and I just saw who my co-host is. He is what he eats, I guess. That's pretty funny. So there's a chance we might be getting him back, and that's great. But that's the overall scenario. And as a result, I wanted to be able to get into what we're going to be doing in code, and also what we need to do to set up some communications for some future episodes. And I'm going to say, hey, Peter, go ahead and switch us over to the code or screen view. You could. Are we switched?
Yeah, I'm here.
Peter, are we? Yes, thank you. Yay, got Vidhan back. All right, so
Hey.
Vidhan, I just did an overview of what we're going to be doing, and so now we're in the code view. And what I want to do is I really want to start talking about what the scenario is going to represent. We're going to be building a very little, like a tiny web client. This tiny web client is going to represent one single delivery operator and their vehicle. So it's not to represent all the delivery drivers, just one of them. But each one of the delivery operators could log into this little tiny app on their own, and it's like it represents them. So that's the key, and they are going to be ultimately publishing their information, their geo coordinate information, to another source in a future episode. But for now, we want to get this built. So this is all about publishing the information, and we'll get way more details on subscribing to it in other episodes. But let's see what we need to do. So first of all, on the screen, this is a very, when I say simple HTML client, I'm not kidding here. I mean, we truly only have, as far as elements on the page, we only have a select element, a div, and a script where all the code exists. Now, I will say, in the head section, we do have a lot going on, because we have all of the information here to link to our here script 3.1 libraries, in addition to the fact that here are all the resources that I'm using for the AWS IoT stuff, of which you'll see the Amazon. Okay, are you still with me?
Yeah,
I felt like we kind of like went into the phantom zone for a moment. Okay. All right. So now that we see what this HTML looks like, I just wanted you to see what this demo app JavaScript file looks like. Ultimately, what it is it's like the boilerplate code that you normally typically see in like some of our example files. It's pretty much what you need to get the map up and running, with a few exceptions. Like, for example, I'm loading a custom YAML file down here. And that's something that just makes the map look a little different. I'm also tilting the angle of the map down here just so we can get a little perspective. It's not just a straight on view, but just has a little dimension to it. So with that said, let's just see what it looks like just the way it is. So I'm going to bring over into view just this tiny window. You can see our select here. Now, if I choose a vehicle, any vehicle, nothing is happening. And the reason for that is because we didn't write any code to do anything. And also, if you're wondering where is our map on the page, if I go over now to our index and open up the head section again, you'll notice that the map container has a display of none. So I've explicitly said, don't even display the map, because
Mhm.
what we're trying to simulate here, when someone is selecting which vehicle or which operator they are, we want that to be kind of like their login. So we're simulating just a very simple login. Once they're logged
Okay.
in, then we're going to show the map. So let me show you the code for that. Any questions on that so far? Or is there any questions in the
Yeah, like
chat
this
room?
HTML looks quite neat actually, right? It looks quite amazing. Till now, we don't have any queries. So yeah.
Okay, so far no queries. Great. So what I'm going to do, because the last I was on an episode with Sina once, and I
Mhm.
was typing a lot, and I realized that I'm
Okay,
slow typer. So
we got him back. Okay, so we are facing a bit of technical issues, right? Right. Okay, so what Michael was trying to say, or what Michael was saying, is that we are going to create code by simply not showing all the code at once, but typing parts, and or part by part we're going to complete the code. And meanwhile, we'll have to wait for Michael, and we can talk about other things. For example, the structure that we are creating here, the supply chain here, what we are doing is we are mimicking a bunch of vehicles, transport vehicles, which will be sending data to our AWS IoT. And on AWS IoT, what we are going to do is we are simply going to collect that data, and we'll see how to filter that data also, right? Because what happens is when we're talking about AWS IoT or any communication in there, what we have when we talk about the communication from a device, from a vehicle, then you're talking about protocol called MQTT, and that is what we are using here, which Michael is going to tell you all that this protocol, which is MQTT, it plays wonderfully in this scenario. Why? Because of course the size. We have small size, and if you have a transport vehicle which is sending you data, it's not going to consume much of the battery. That is for one. And second, uh, apart from that, it's quite easy to code in MQTT. That is another thing which you all should look for when you are trying to create and structure, when you are trying to create a complete scenario of a supply chain where you are tracking an asset which is inside your transport vehicle. Apart from that, we are also going to, and apart from that, when you're sending data from your transport vehicle to any of a cloud, right? Let's say we are talking about any of a cloud, then the scenario which you should always take in account is security, right? Because you don't want somebody to sniff your data while it is traveling from your device or your truck or your transport vehicle to the cloud, right? In that scenario, what are you going to do? You have a lot of options, but the best option is to go for asymmetric encryption, right? Or you can call it a cryptography. Oh, nice! I like the Cassidy. So you can go for asymmetric cryptography, and if you plan to create by yourself, I'm afraid that will be very tough. So what you should be doing is you should be doing that on your cloud, and AWS works very well with this, right? We have a specific section called AWS IoT where you can simply go and you can create the certificates, the keys, private key, public key, and you can get the root CA certificate, which you can simply use it in your end device, which is basically our truck, and that is what we're going to do in JavaScript once Michael's screen is up.
yay.
Hey, Michael, welcome
Man,
back.
I could sure.
I think it's happening internationally. I'm in India, I got the issue. You are in USA, you got the issue.
It's crazy. I don't know what happened,
Yeah.
but it was in the Phantom Zone. It's another episode. I'll explain it later, but it was a rush. It was definitely a different experience. Okay. Um, I think where I was at, Peter, do we have the screen on now? Oh, okay. So when he tells me, I'll switch over to that
So
discussion.
I was talking about the security that we are going to discuss, right? When you are going to show the code, that
Hmm.
okay, we use cryptography, we use asymmetric cryptography, and cloud, which is AWS IoT. Let us create the certificates, the keys, and in that way, it helps us out in having a secure communication from our transport vehicle to the cloud so that nobody is able to sniff, nobody is able to attack like MITM, which is man in the middle attack, and all those things.
Cool. Thank you for doing that, Vidon. I appreciate that. In fact, when we get to that screen, then we don't have to recover that all over again, but I'll just highlight this is what you were talking about. So I appreciate you doing that. Um, oh man, time. By the way, time goes in a different dimension when you're gone. So it's been like 3 years, so I'm trying to readjust. But I think where I was at was HTML page. Now I want to go over into the code view, and what I want to do is, and I think I was just about to show what the behavior looks like, and that is the behavior is it doesn't do anything right now because there is no behavior that's been added. So now that that's the case, I'm just going to take this. I think I was at one point trying to explain that I hate typing and then I got cursed. So then I'm going to come back in here because I said typing, I think it takes too long. But I can tell you Phantom Zone also takes a long time. Okay. So let me explain what's on the screen right now, starting on line 31. All I'm doing is I'm declaring this global variable called transport op. That's going to be the identification of the one who logged in, either 1, 2, or 3.
Mhm.
Then on the next line, I'm asking that select element. I'm asking for it so that I can add an event handler to it on the next line and say if it changes, I want to grab its value, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. And then I'm going to, on line 35, you'll notice that I'm going to load a map icon into uh, where the marker goes. That's going to be custom, and it's going to use that operator name because all the different vehicle operators look differently. There's a black one, a blue one, a yellow one. So they're all differently. As far as their trucks or vehicles look. Then I make it draggable. So everything on here is making it draggable. And you'll notice that I'm saying on this line here on line 39, hey, map, you can turn yourself back on again so we can see you. And the only reason why I'm calling line 40 is that this resize will also invoke refresh the screen. So just because I told it to turn on, nothing really will invoke it until I do something like the resize. Even if I'm not resizing, it'll still work. So the reason why I'm saying all that is, of course, obviously, I want to demonstrate how this is going to look. So I'm going to bring that other view back on this little tiny client. And because I've made a change, I'm going to need to refresh the screen, make sure it's fully refreshed. And now I'm going to select vehicle 1. And when I do that, you could see I have my little delivery truck right there in the center of the screen. Now, you could see the code on the screen right now. I mean, I did say on
I can
line
see
what?
the code. Yep.
Do you see line 37 where I said, hey, make this thing draggable, right?
Yeah, I can see that. It says true.
Says
And
true. So
yeah.
I'm thinking I could take this vehicle right now, grab it, and wait a minute. It that I mean, what's going on? It's not letting me drag it. It's like it's just, you know, I'm not able to do that because just because you say it's draggable, what I didn't do is I didn't indicate what all those behaviors are, right? So what are the
Yeah.
behaviors? What is this supposed to do when I drag it? So so yes, it works, in terms of loading the truck icon and having everything set up. But now what I need to do is I need to go back over here and grab this code, which is the draggable behavior. So I'm gonna
Okay.
copy all this to here. Again, be grateful I didn't type all this. I'm bringing it back over to our demo app. Just put it down here. And let me explain just in brief what we're doing. First of all, I have this little helper function that is going to be used in an info bubble. Because what I want to do is when I drag the vehicle around, once I land it somewhere, I want it to pop up what its coordinates are. So this will return a really friendly view of those coordinates. So that's just the helper function. Then I have all these event listeners for the drag start, drag, and drag end. Drag start literally is, this is coming straight from our example code. So I'm just saying there's nothing in here other than the fact that it's going to make sure that it's only going to drag if it's a type marker. So that's the key here. The drag is just going to make sure we can visibly see it on the map as we're dragging it. But it's in this drag end event that I have this method that I've created or I'm calling called process marker. And that's where all the stuff happens. So once we let go of the vehicle, what is it going to do?
Okay.
So
Oh,
here's what it does. By the way, this behavior.enable, there's a behavior.disable in here on line 57. So when we start the process, it's kind of like saying, okay, all the default behaviors that we're typically doing on the map, we're going to put them on pause while we're doing this drag and drop thing. Once we're done, then we'll return those behaviors back on. So that's all that means. On line 75, I'm grabbing the coordinates of wherever I drop that marker.
okay.
Then I'm creating a little HTML message here using that little helper function I showed you up above that will give me a friendly view. I'm creating my info bubble. I added the info bubble. I'll talk about these commented lines in a moment, but then we center the map wherever the marker is. So do you have any questions or comments on that, Vidhan?
Yeah, so it totally makes sense because what I have been doing is I've been generating random data in a code, and then I'm sending. I used to send the data to the cloud, but showing it on a map and dragging and moving it and then grabbing the lat long makes total sense if you are not using a hardware to show it.
Exactly. And I'm really grateful that you mentioned it that way, because really that's what this whole point is instead of just dealing with obscure data behind the scenes, I'm giving us the ability to not only visibly see it, but actually control it. So we are the controller of this vehicle. So you pick a vehicle, Vidhan. Are we going to go with 1, 2, or 3?
Let's go with 3.
3.
Yeah.
So we get the yellow vehicle on the screen, right? So we've added the drag and drop behavior, which means that now when I grab it, instead of the screen going crazy, I'm actually dragging this thing around now. And if I go put it way over here, it centers and it gives me the info bubble of its coordinates.
Nice, it's moving now.
So it's moving. So again, the whole point of this is to say, and we're not just going to provide like a random set of a whole bunch of coordinates of where a vehicle's going in or out. We could literally choose, okay, it's now driven to this point, and now it's driven over to this point. So the whole idea is we are in control of this vehicle. Now, just to show you that, it does actually work with something else, I'm going to also show. Let's bring this to the fore. I'll refresh this as well. So you could see we got the yellow vehicle there, but I'm going to choose number 2. And
Okay.
now we got our blue vehicle. And, we could do the same thing, move it around and get its coordinates. So these are 2 instances of the app, separate instances of the app, 2 different vehicles. And that's important for what we're going to be discussing next.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to just switch over to, let's see where it is, right here. Boom. What you should see on the screen is IoT Core Documentation. You have a question, Vidhan?
Yeah, so basically what we are doing right now is we are generating the data, right? We are mimicking as a vehicle, which is sending or which is generating the lat long location data, right?
That's correct. And
Okay.
so think of it this way. It simulates if you had a GPS tracker of some kind in your vehicle. But for us to demo this effectively, I wanted it so that we can actually control the vehicle ourselves, land it wherever we want it to go. And at least in this initial phase of the transportation, that's what we're doing with the vehicles is we're just dragging and dropping them. So we'll see how that all plays out as it fits in with other puzzle pieces a little later. But if you're interested in this next part is, so far all we've done is created a drag and droppable marker. We didn't do anything with AWS IoT yet. Uh,
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, now every single time the vehicle moves, which is every time we drag and drop it, we want to
Mhm.
report its geolocation information somewhere. So we're going to publish it, and we're going to do that through AWS IoT. The reason why I have the screen showing is to, just make sure everyone's aware. If they're interested in more information on this in general, you can go to docs.aws.amazon.com/IoT for the core documentation. You can also look at all the tools to build on AWS, and this is where, like I have JavaScript highlighted right now, and if I wanted to explore how to do the AWS IoT with JavaScript, whether it's like in a node environment or in the browser, this is where I got the information to get my Amazon SDK reference. And hey, look at this, Vidhan. Are you excited here? We got
Yeah.
we got some Python stuff here as well. This will make you happy.
Yeah. So there are a lot of languages that is there, and I am totally interested in Python. So I'll be just
Exactly. So,
yeah.
I'm mentioning this because even though we're demonstrating this in JavaScript, all the things that we're doing can be done in pretty much any one of your, developer platforms. But I do want to talk a little bit about this. Uh, we are going to be doing some communications using something called MQTT. And uh, in fact, you had mentioned before something about a little background. Can you share that little background? I know when we talked previously, you were. What was that background you had on MQTT?
So MQTT is not a new protocol. First of all, a lot of people have this that okay, MQTT is a new protocol, but not. It is not a new protocol. It was invented in 98, 99 and by developers of IBM and one more company. I don't remember the name of that company. And they had a project where they were trying to, or they were basically monitoring the oil pipelines, right? Your gas pipelines, and these pipelines they are going through the forest and the hills and all those such areas, and where you don't have a proper way of communication. So they decided to go with satellite communication. And that time, Michael, they faced an issue, and the issue was the data that they were sending from different hardware, which was placed at strategic location on the gas pipeline. The data size was big, right? And apart from that, since the data size was big and it's a satellite communication, they were charged a lot.
Hmm.
So the engineers, what they did was they decided that let's pick up or let's create a protocol or a way of communication which is lightweight and which does not consume a lot of bandwidth, because these are the hilly areas and forests. Nobody can go there weekly or even in a month to change the batteries. So they created message queuing transport telemetry protocol, which is called MQTT, and that's how it came here. And later on, IBM gave this to I think Eclipse.org, and it was called as Project PAHO, PAHO. That is
Hmm.
from where MQTT came into picture.
Cool. Well, for those that may not have used this protocol, one of the things that is used is something called topics, and topics are they're a way to address how you want to do your communications. And so I wanted to cover some of these things conceptually before we dive into it. The first is that you could do what's called a point-to-point communication, and by point-to-point, what we're saying is we have right here, it's kind of hard to see, but it says robotics slash 10930. Now, that is what this is publishing to, and it's publishing this JSON uh, data right below. Then we have someone who's subscribing exactly to that same thing, that same topic. Look at this as like the platform and the specific thing in that platform. So that's a one-to-one. But then we also have this one. Uh, this is the one-to-one. Let me see right here. Just look at the. Oh yeah, this is what it is. So we have this repair service that itself it publishes to multiple topics, right? 2390, 2289. It has the various publishers. It's still technically publishing one-to-one, but because we have one source of where multiple publishing is happening. So that's why you can have, okay, for this guy, this one shipped and this one here is delayed. That's basically how that one works. Broadcasting is when you have one topic, such as this bus US New York weather, and now you have the same exact thing being subscribed to by multiple clients. When that happens, you're broadcasting. And then finally, you have this fan in, and the fan in says, hey, I'm publishing to building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but this one's going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But we have this subscriber here that is saying, actually, anything that happens to building 1, 2, 3, 4, after that slash, if we put a plus sign, that means I just want all the information for everything at that level. So what I thought would be fun to do is to actually go into the testing environment in IoT. So I'm signed in, and we are going to subscribe to a topic. And the first thing I'm going to do, Vidhan, is I'm going to describe to the topic of here. And you'll notice I get to choose the topic names. There's no rules as to what the names must be or not be, but there is a guideline recommendation that you never use uppercase. It's always lowercase, right? So
True.
I'm going to subscribe to this topic. Now you'll see what happens in the test client is that here is over here on this side. And now it's giving me an opportunity to publish the topic with, whatever messaging I want in here. So if this is the topic that I'm going to publish to, and I'm just going to keep, let's say, this messaging the same, I'll go ahead and publish to that topic. And now as I go, look here, I can see this information down below. So I just published to it. Let me go back to subscribe a topic. You'll see here is still there. But now if I say here/A, I want to subscribe specifically to the A channel, let's say, of here, and subscribe to that topic. So if I publish to here/A, and I say, I'll put a whole bunch of A's in lowercase there for the message. My question to you is, if I publish to that topic, will it show up in here, since here is the the parent, so to speak, or the main of this? What would you say?
It shouldn't.
You're right. It shouldn't.
But today is a strange day.
But today's a strange day. I've been to the Phantom Zone. Got it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you were correct. When I go here, I don't see the AAA message here. I only see it here because I only subscribed specifically to A channel. Now, I'm going to publish, or I'm going to subscribe to another topic. This one's going to be the B channel. So I'm subscribing to that. So now here, we have our /A and /B. And now for our B message, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put a bunch of B's in here and publish to that topic. So again, it only showed up in the B. It didn't show up in the A. It didn't show up over here. All right. I'm going to do one more that should be kind of interesting. I want to subscribe to here/, and this is what we, whoops. I think I put the wrong here/plus. That should be right. Why is it giving me that error? Oh, I can't. Yes, my bad.
Try it again.
No. I'm doing it in the wrong spot. I need to subscribe. So I was trying to publish. You can't publish to a fan, but you can subscribe. So what I'm saying is, this is my wild card, the plus key. I want to subscribe to anything that happens after the / on a here. So I'll subscribe to that topic. So now what's interesting is, if I publish, I could say, let me publish to A, and I'll put a whole bunch of just random stuff in there and publish. You'll notice that I get it in the A, see the green dot, but I also get it down here because that's the thing that is doing the multi-subscribe. So anything you want to add here?
Yeah. You can try one more thing. You can try hash. Simply, while you are subscribing, instead of writing anything,
just a hashtag.
Just a hash. Yeah.
Just subscribe to that. You're crazy. You're telling me just one single character.
Try it out.
Okay, I'll try it. So you're saying that if I go to HERE and publish this message here of nonsense, it's going to show up in that hashtag.
Yeah. So
Whoa. You are correct, sir. It showed not only here, but here. Are you telling me that if I publish to something called cannoli, which I've
yeah,
never even subscribed to, if I publish to that topic, it still shows? That's
it
crazy.
will. The reason, Michael, is because it is what we call multi-level. You can say that topic, or it's a master multi-level segregator, right? So when you have hash, right, the symbol, and you are subscribing, you can subscribe to any topic. Okay, so that is one of the very beautiful thing when you are working with topics in MQTT.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, I tell you what, now that we've seen a little bit about MQTT, and in terms of its behavior, I'm going to go back over to our code view, right? So let's go here. I would like to now say, so how are we going to use all that goodness of communication in our code? So going back over to my note here, I'm now going to add just a little bit more, bring it over here to my code, and let me explain what's going on. I'm importing from an iot.js file, which I'll show in a second, this get client function, which I'm calling right here on line 87. I'm saying I want my client to equal the result of that function call, and I'm passing in a method that says this is what I want to do if I successfully have connected to AWS IoT. So I'm just doing
Okay.
a console log of connected. So I haven't even, I haven't changed the website yet. So if I go over and let's say go back over to one of these, if I hit F12, we
Mhm.
don't see anything in this window as of yet, right?
Yeah.
Nothing. But going back into this code, once this code is committed to or saved to the website, and then we go ahead and show it, what we're going to see now is that we're going to be connecting to IoT. We're going to get it connected. But that's all that's going to happen. All it's going to show is that we have successfully connected to IoT. So
Mhm.
I want to show that first, and then I'm going to show you this iot.js file. So
Michael, so when you are doing an MQTT connection, right? So there are, for example, in HTTP, when the connection is successful, we get 200 OK, right? And apart from that, anything that we get is connection is unsuccessful. We talk about 400 series error or 500 series error. Similarly, in MQTT, we also have that return code. We call it return code, RC. And for successful connection, that code comes out to be 0. Apart from 0, if you're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means that connection is not there.
well, thank you for that. I was thinking that I had this incorrectly. I'm pretty sure it is that console.log connected should have shown. Let me
Mhm.
just make sure that everything is correct. Let me go back to that screen. Maybe I just need to refresh it better. So let me do a nice little refresh. And let's see. Oh, okay. So I did get a connected right here. So that's what I was looking for. I'll
Okay,
I'll, I'll
so
refresh again. There we go. So we see the connected. So there was just like a little hiccup, but even before I showed the map or anything, the behind the scenes handshake. So this is basically establishing we've made the call, we're ready to talk, right?
yeah.
But we haven't done any talking yet
Mhm.
because that's this little final stage over here. Remember, I have these things that are uncommented. I'm gonna uncomment them in a second, but let's first look at
Mhm.
this iot.js file. When I look at that, this is that get client function, and
Okay.
it's basically creating a client. And I know this seems a little strange. It's also yet importing from another file, which I'm going to show. But we're doing some connections here as we're creating the client. We're saying what do we want the success method to be if we have a successful connection? And that's when I passed in that console log dot, connected. Um, we're doing all our connections here, returning the client, but then this file here also gets into the nitty gritty of how we actually grade it. Remember when you said PAHO,
Yeah.
PAHO? So we're creating an instance of a client here, and this is the code to generate the endpoint. It is
Nice.
nasty looking. It is not pleasant to look at this code, but it is what is necessary just to get the endpoint.
This is how codes are, Michael. That's really thing.
But very well secured community. I know you've already talked about some of those things earlier in the episode, so I'll just leave it at that. There's some things going on in here that make sure that we have absolutely secure credentials. But I want to go back over into the functionality aspect of this and say, okay, what we're dealing with here is now that we're connected, notice that I believe it's in the config that there is a publish method that is added to this client that allows me to pass in the topic and the payload. The topic
Michael,
is going to be that slashing, the way we did those slash names, and the payload will be a JSON of anything that we want it to be, right? Just whatever that's the case. So now that we know that, going over into this demo code, I'm going to uncomment this code, and I'm going to use that publish to go to SC/transport, right? So SC for supply chain transport. I'm going to pass in which operator is sending this information. In
okay.
addition to the fact that I'm going to explicitly name the operator in the JSON code and also
Mhm.
pass in those coordinates. So any comments or questions on that?
Yeah, so basically you are using multi-level of topic naming, right? So we have a company name, then we have a particular section of the company called transport,
Yeah.
and then we'll have a vehicle number which will come under the transport, right?
Yes.
So that looks amazing.
So to make this demonstration really interesting, I'm going to pull up the AWS test client again. And
Okay.
remember you had the hashtag there?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that up because we know that we're connected to anything. And I want to see what happens. Now I've cleared up here. But
Okay.
let's see what happens when I now go into our transportation. So I'm going to bring up our different drivers. I got to refresh each one of these. And so I'll start right here. I'll refresh, just make sure we got the freshest copies because that's what kind of went bad the last time. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to choose number 1.
Okay.
That is going to bring us this vehicle. Now let's see what happens on the screen when I move this vehicle somewhere. Look at that. Transport number 1 with a Latin long, and we can validate it right up against the info
Yeah.
bubble. Okay, let's see what happens. Pick either 2 or 3.
Go for 2.
Got 2. And we're going to take that vehicle, move it over this way. And look at that. We got number 2 up there,
Yeah.
4760105. And we got the same thing over here. So we have success. We basically have 2 separate instances of an app that are automatically communicating with this central testing area in IoT. Now, that's not helpful, but this is going to be very helpful in subsequent episodes when we're going to talk about other subscribers, and what they're going to do with those coordinates is going to be very interesting. But now at least we have this bit on. We have the ability to take a vehicle. Again, I'll just to make sure we got it, I'll clear everything on the screen. I'm going to go.
So we have more than 10 minutes with
Yeah,
us. Yeah.
I'm just moving a vehicle around just so that it's very clear that every time this vehicle moves, I'm getting updated coordinates
So
communicated through MQTT. please.
If I look from IoT perspective, right? Let's say that you have this vehicle which is on field, on road, and if I want to send data to AWS IoT, and uh, if I go, there are two ways. Either I'm going to send data in every 3 seconds or in a time interval, one, or else I would like to send data as soon as vehicle starts moving, right? So the scenario that we are discussing right now is if the vehicle is moving, right? That is what we're mimicking. In that case, what I would have or what I would do from IoT perspective is I would put a accelerometer, and if the position of accelerometer changes, the values, it will send the data.
That's awesome. In fact, I wasn't even factoring that into the demo, but I'm glad that you brought that up. That for actual real world scenarios, what would be the trigger point essentially for sending those geo coordinates? And like you said, you could either just do your standard polling or pushing of data, or you could have some conditions that actually change things. And I think that that's a clever idea, using something that's practical to minimize the amount of traffic that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with that stated, I believe we can go back to our studio view.
Yes.
All right, man. So here's the thing. What we've essentially done is we've created draggable markers that represent vehicles. Once they are dragged to a new location, they will publish their geocode or their geo coordinates up to whatever, basically they're publishing to a topic. And that
Yeah.
MQTT topic in this case was SC for supply chain / transport / whatever the operator name is. And near episodes, we're going to see how we can subscribe to that and why that makes a difference to us and what we're going to do with that data. Any questions or comments from the chat room or that you might want to share, Vidhan?
Yeah. So what I liked a lot is, okay, we are sending the data, and the feature that I am quite fascinated is the data that is going to from the vehicle to the cloud is completely secured, right? You're using the keys and like hashing and all those algorithms to secure it. So that is something which is quite interesting.
Well, definitely can say that's not code that you write in just a couple minutes. It's definitely when you are putting that kind of code together, it does take a little while to get it right. But once you have it right, it's a great feeling. All those resources that we showed earlier are how you can get started with some of those things in your own environment. But here's what we have to look forward to in the near future. So first of all, I want to say that tomorrow we are going to have another home office hours. This is going to be the one that's a little closer to your time zone. But as far as like when it starts from the U.S. perspective, the Pacific time, it's 8:30 in the morning. Then 1 week from today, we have another episode in the AWS Connections IoT series. So that starts at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Vidhan, what are you going to be doing in that episode?
Okay, so in the first episode, we ventured into IoT ecosystem. We understood that, and we started working on IoT device. So in second episode, we are going to dive deeper into it, and we are going to create an IoT gateway with the help of Raspberry Pi, and we are going to send data from our IoT endpoint to our IoT gateway, which is Raspberry Pi. So that is what we're going to do.
Awesome. So I'll be your sidekick on that episode. I'm looking forward to that. And then 2 weeks from today, we are going to have the next episode of this series, and that one is going to be retail. So this is going to be when we introduce the product that is going to be delivered and how the consumer is going to request that product. And what impact that will have on the overall scenario. So stay tuned for that. Real excited about the entire AWS connection series. I feel bad that we had a couple glitches, but the knowledge that I learned in that 3 years that I was gone was just absolutely amazing. So I'll have to share that in another episode. But until then, uh, uh, do you have any last words, Vidhan?
Yeah, so I loved it. The reason is because we were able to send data by dragging the image on a map, and that is something that I would love to try out in one of the my blog or something like that. And it was amazing.
Yeah, it's fun to use some of these behaviors in ways that maybe no one ever thought to represent vehicle movement or something. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll be fun to do the demo. By the time it's done, we're going to have like probably 5 different screens, all separate, and they're all communicating with each other, doing different things.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a fun thing to do. Well,
true.
everyone, that is going to end our episode for the day. Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.